I'm Justin Young. He is Josh Tech, and this is the early signing period on HoopSeen.com. We're talking about the Big 12, and I'll be honest with you, Josh, this league's kind of wild. It's kind of wild in a good way, man. The games are always wild. We love watching them on those late night games. We also know in the recruiting circles, when you got Kansas, you got Baylor, you got the Texas schools, this whole league's going to be going through some crazy changes, which really kind of sets the tone for what we're going to talk about today here on the early signing period scope. And really, when you look at this from top to bottom, Josh, that's pretty freaking good at the top with the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the traditional powers in Kansas and Baylor coming back in with, top 10 recruiting classes. And then you have to throw Iowa State in there, which is, a little bit out of left field. But, the Cyclones have been a pretty powerful program within the Big 12 in recent years. And now they're kind of rebuilding that momentum and getting back towards the top of the league.
Then you got guys like Jerome Tang at Kansas State that are new, that are going to change some stuff there. And then the league overall, you got some new faces coming in, you got some faces going out. So like the league is like this revolving door of talent kind of coming around. But the constants, we'll start there, is that Kansas is always going to be a school that recruits pros.
Yep.
They're going to be a school that recruits all conference guys. And once again, Bill Self and his staff have done that.
Yeah, they've got a great backcourt coming in Kansas. And this kind of reminds me of a typical Bill Self backcourt where they're going to be able to get to the rim. They're going to be able to hit shots. They're going to be really terrific under that program.
We love this backcourt. You mentioned it. Marco Jackson, Chris Johnson. You got the wing, Jamari McDowell. Man, that's a three-man group. We've talked about them on their own in a different short pod. But Chris Johnson, Marco Jackson, I mean, both of those guys, man, like how do you can stop one, but the other guy's going to kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a two-headed monster. It kind of reminds me of that year that they had Frank Mason and Devontae Graham in the backcourt together.
Man, Frank Mason, what an unbelievable
player.
Yeah. Chris Johnson, I made a bold prediction in a different segment. I'll say it again here. I think he leads the league in scoring during his tenure in Lawrence, Kansas. So
you know what I love about that group there? They don't have a big man, but they have Ernest Uday still, who's probably going to still be around. And we love Ernest. So pairing him with all these wing and guards, like that's going to be a really great Kansas team at some point.
And Kansas is always going to go get good bigs. There's no doubt about it. That might be a transfer. That might be a bounce back. It might be a guy next year's class that they go after and get. But Kansas is going to have bigs, not only just one big, but multiple bigs. So that's just the way they've always done that. But when you look at Baylor, though, right, that's KU and Baylor have kind of become like this unbelievable must-see TV. And Baylor, they're no strangers to recruiting pros. They're no strangers to recruiting high-level guys. They're certainly leaning into their national championship. And I think when you look at Baylor, you got a stud coming to town in Jacoby Walter, who I think is going to be an absolute problem from top to bottom. And really the way Baylor does things and the types of guards that they have, they've got guards that absolutely push your defender all the way to the baseline, constantly attacking the rim. Davion Mitchell reminded me a lot of what we're going to get with Jacoby Walter. There's some familiarity there. And if you're a big Baylor Bears fan, I got to think you're pretty damn excited about that.
Yeah, these two guards that are coming in remind me of those, two guards that helped Baylor dominate in their national championship run. And the year before, they got shut down by COVID. I mean, I think that Scott Drew kind of has identified what he's looking for in the backcourt, and he's got it with these two guards coming in.
When you have things that are constants, you are always looking for disruptors. And I think that's what we see with this class at Iowa State. A historic class, historic recruit. Will the expectations be, I don't know, how do you handle those types of expectations if you're Omaha Blue?
It's tough, man. It's tough, especially it's got to be tough being an in-state kind of guy, right? Like he grew up in Iowa. So it might be a little bit added pressure on him. But with a guy like Omaha Blue, I don't think that that's going to affect him at all because he's just such a high motor, high energy kind of guy. I think he's just going to go out there and have an infectious, approach to the game. And he's going to get his teammates, kind of revved up just because he plays with that kind of high intensity and motor.
Best player ever in school history coming to Iowa. I mean, that when you say that out loud and you think about how long that school's been in, right? Like, who knows if we didn't have like .com recruiting stuff in like the 70s, like, is he really that? Is he better than Marcus Fizer? I don't know. We'll see. Marcus Fizer is a pretty damn good player in his own right. But like, yeah, in the modern recruiting era, the best one they've ever brought into town. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's impressive. And they got good guys around him too. It's not just a one-man class. This is a deep class. They've got, 4 or 5, top 150 kind of guys.
Will you explain a little bit more on that class?
Yeah, so they got Jelani Hamilton, who's right here in my backyard. He goes to Wheeler High School. He's going to be a great scorer in that class. And then another great scorer that Iowa State Cyclones need is Milan Momcilovic. He's going to be able to, he's a Midwestern kind of guy. He's going to be able to play that Midwestern style. He's going to space the floor as a shooter. He's got good size, around 6'7" or so. And then, yeah, so I think they're going to have a lot of good scoring, and then plus Omaha Blues defense.
No doubt about it. We talked about at the beginning of the show about Kansas State and about Jerome Tang being there. I really think there's something that's about to happen there in Manhattan, going back to when Bob Huggins was there and Frank Martin was there. I mean, really, you go down all the list. Bruce Weber was there. I mean, they've had great players there in Kansas State over the last 20 so years. I think Jerome Tang's going to bring a different style in there. He was such a key part to getting all these great guards to Baylor for however long he was there, 20 plus years, being there with Scott Drew as they established that program and to become a national champion. I think he's going to do that right away. I really, really like RJ Jones, who's from the Dallas area, that's at Wasatch Academy in Utah. Premier shooter. He's going to be a guy that I think goes to Lawrence. I think he's the guy that goes to, on the road that really kind of lights people up. He puts a lot of shots up, gets a lot of three-point shots, and really is a type of player that I think can absolutely thrive in that system that Jerome Tang's trying to put together there at Kansas State. And on top of that, you got Day-Day Ames, who's one of the best point guards that we have in the class of 2023. So a really good backcourt to grow with, which is not surprising that that's the direction that he wants to go, given his history there at Baylor. It's interesting, Josh, though, with this league. Texas doesn't have a commit. At least I don't think they have a commit. Do they have a commit? No, they don't have a commit. And so then you got Oklahoma, and these guys are on their way out. But on the way in, you've got some new schools coming in too. How much does the new additions change the whole landscape of the league?
I think so. It's obviously going to change pretty significantly, right? You're going to lose two of your top tier kind of programs, but then you're also going to gain some more top tier kind of programs. Houston, they're operating at the top of the sport, and they have a really interesting class this year coming in. Cincinnati, they've been taking big swings on the recruiting trail, and they've been connecting on some of those swings as well. And then you got a perennial winner in BYU coming in as well. So while they're going to lose two really power programs, they're also bringing in three really power programs.
Well, it changes the whole you go all the way from BYU is going to be more transfer based, but think about this: you've got a lot of kids now in the West. Okay, they're going to recruit a lot of guys in Utah, Idaho, Arizona, some kids in California. Then you add Central Florida all the way down in Orlando. So now you get some kids from the great state of Florida. Now you're adding Cincinnati. So you got guys from the Midwest. I mean, the Big 12, I think it always has had that because of their ability to recruit junior colleges that are in that area geographically. But this league is it's kind of bends the mind a little bit. And I saw something the other day about Gonzaga maybe joining the league as well down the road. I'm really interested to see how the recruiting shifts, because when you look back, when Texas A&M left to go to the SEC, that all of a sudden, no, not all of a sudden, it took some time, but more schools started to slowly dip into Texas from the SEC. They started to recruit guys I think about Severe Wheeler, probably wouldn't have gone to Georgia had the SEC not come into play with College Station now being in the league with Texas A&M. And I wonder how much
down there too.
What's that?
Kentucky's really recruited down there and had some big-time guys out of Texas as well.
No question. And I think when you look at the Big 12, how much does this geographical shift change the complexity overall of the league, right? Listen, we know Baylor's going to recruit Texas really hard. We know Kansas is going to recruit Texas really hard. But now you take these powerhouses out of the league, that opens a lot of things up. Now, Texas Tech, who have done an unbelievable job of overachieving. I think they recruit junior colleges really, really well. I love the talent they have there now. I actually really like the talent they have coming in too. Let's talk about Texas Tech for a second, what Mark Adams and his crew are doing. They've got a couple guys that maybe aren't major 4-star guys, but they've got a couple players that are coming to town that we like as well, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Texas Tech is building another it's going to be one of those workman-like kind of classes.
Yeah, Jason Jackson, Drew Steffi, two guys that can come in there, hit shots, make plays, play really, really well off of Pop Isaacs in the group that they have there too. I really like Jace Posey at TCU. I think he's a real sleeper. When we talk about the context of the league, I know he's a nationally ranked guy within the top 100 on some lists. I got to talk about Brandon Garrison going to Oklahoma State too. I think that's a real power play there. Really good player in state, really long, can block some shots. Oklahoma State, they've had some dudes. I think Mike Boynton's certainly motivated to win some games in that league too. So really interested to see what happens moving forward with the overall league in its entirety. Anybody else we're leaving out that you want to talk about in this league?
No, I mean, I do want to hit more on Jason Jackson just because he is a Florida guy that we've seen a lot. And I think he's going to bring in so much athleticism and so much toughness, and that defense that he plays is going to really fit in well over there in Lubbock.
Yeah, they're sneaky, man. They're sneaky. Texas Tech always sneaks up on you.
I know, man.
The more I think about this, there's a couple guys too. Like Ron Holland's probably going to be a commitment for Texas, which will change things within the league, right? Like he'll come in there. He's probably a one and done. I like the group that they already have there. Chris Beard and his staff. Be interested to see what happens there. We know Oklahoma is going to be a player for some schools or for some players as well. Caden Cooper most likely comes to mind. Oklahoma State may get Eric Daly. So this Big 12 may really have some shifts as we look forward in the next week as we go through the signing period.
Yeah, by the time, we might have to do a posthumous signing period podcast about the Big 12 because there's more coming down the pike, right?
No question about it. And again, this is a league too that we've also got to consider those transfers, and it's interesting too. Like people have asked me like, well, how do we grade these transfers? How do we figure these guys out with the high school guys? I don't know. I still don't have a great answer for that, but I know this league's going to have some good ones. And it'd be interesting to see if there's interleague transfers as well because of the comings and goings. Texas leaves, maybe a guy wants to play more in front of his, his home and his friends and family in the state of Texas or in that region. So I don't know, man. This league melts my brain, honestly.
It does. And like you bring up a good point with transfers. A lot of the programs in this league really do a good job and succeed with transfers. You think Texas Tech succeeds with transfers. Iowa State had a really good run with some transfers this past season. Baylor has good transfers usually. Kansas had some good transfers this past season. So it's like a weird balance of, new talent, transfers, and then, a lot of these teams have like older guys that are going to stick around too. So they're just going to keep operating as one of the best leagues in college basketball.
Well, it's also a good league where you find some sleepers. Again, I'm hanging my hat, Jace Posey and TCU. I think TCU has got some dudes. PJ Haggerty is going to be a freshman there right now. It was my guy last year that I thought was our sleeper to watch. So we'll see what happens. Well, that kind of wraps it up right now for Big 12. I think you're right, Josh. I think we need to revisit this league in a week's time to see how things change with all the different commitments and how it changes the whole landscape of the conference from top to bottom. But if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you like this video and share it with your friends. Let us know how good a job we're doing, how bad of a job we're doing. Probably the latter. I don't know. We'll see. But nevertheless, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you out there on the hardwood.